Your phone buzzes. You already know there's a good chance it's nothing. A promo email, a notification you don't care about. And yet your hand moves toward it anyway, almost before you've decided to move it at all. You tell yourself it's a bad habit, something you picked up from the algorithm, from the apps, from a screen that was designed in a lab to be addictive. But the real answer is far stranger. Your hand isn't reaching for a phone. It's reaching for something 90,000 years older. Start with the obvious question. Why does checking feel so good, even when the thing you find is boring? You would expect a reward system that only fires when something valuable actually shows up. A message from someone you love. News that matters. Instead, your brain fires before you even see the result. It fires during the reach, during the unlock, during that half second of not knowing. That's the part scientists have spent decades trying to explain, and the explanation starts with a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz. In the 1990s, Schultz was recording the activity of dopamine neurons in monkeys while they waited for a reward, usually a small squirt of juice. He expected the dopamine spike to happen when the juice arrived. It didn't. The spike happened when a cue predicted the juice was coming. Once the monkeys learned that a certain light meant juice, the dopamine fired at the light, not at the drink. Dopamine, it turned out, isn't a pleasure chemical. It's a prediction chemical. It's the feeling of maybe. And maybe, as it happens, is far more addictive than yes. Here's where it gets stranger. Schultz also found something almost nobody expected. When the reward became certain every single time, the dopamine response actually shrank. But when the reward was uncertain, arriving only sometimes, on no fixed schedule, the dopamine response didn't fade. It held. It even spiked higher during the uncertainty itself. Your brain, it turns out, isn't built to chase certainty. It's built to chase unresolved probability. Doesn't that sound familiar? Rewind further into the middle of the 20th century to a psychologist named B.F. Skinner. Skinner built a box. Inside the box, a pigeon could peck a lever. Sometimes the lever released a food pellet. Sometimes it released nothing. Skinner varied the schedule so the pigeon never knew which peck would pay off. What he found reshaped behavioral science. Pigeons on a fixed reward schedule, where every 10th peck guaranteed food, pecked steadily and stopped once they were full. Pigeons on a variable schedule, where the reward could come on peck 2 or peck 20, pecked compulsively. They pecked past the point of hunger. They pecked until exhaustion. Skinner called it the variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it remains, to this day, the single most powerful method known for driving repetitive behavior in any animal with a brain. Humans included. Now hold both of those ideas together. A dopamine system tuned to fire hardest on uncertainty. A behavior loop that becomes unbreakable when reward is unpredictable. Nobody built that system for a smartphone. It was already sitting inside every human skull long before screens existed. So the real question isn't why your phone hooks you. It's what that system originally evolved to do. Picture an early human moving through a landscape roughly 200,000 years ago. Every day, this person has to decide where to look next. Is there fruit on that tree, or did something already strip it bare? Is that rustle in the grass a meal or a predator? This constant low-grade scanning is what researchers now call information foraging, a term borrowed directly from the language of animals searching for food. And food is the right comparison, because to a hunter-gatherer brain, information about the environment was survival currency, every bit as real as calories. A brain that checked constantly, that glanced up from a task every few minutes to reassess the surroundings, wasn't being anxious or distracted. It was being appropriately cautious in a world stacked with unpredictable outcomes. Sometimes the glance revealed nothing. Sometimes it revealed a predator 20 feet away. Because the payoff was uncertain and occasionally massive, natural selection favored brains that never fully stopped scanning. The ones that got bored of scanning too easily didn't always make it to reproduce. There's a second ancient system layered on top of this one, and it has to do with other people. In the 1990s, anthropologist Robin Dunbar proposed that human social groups stayed cohesive not primarily through physical grooming, the way chimpanzees stay bonded, but through something that could scale to larger numbers: gossip, talking about who did what, who is trustworthy, who slipped in status, who might be a threat or an ally. Dunbar's research suggested that roughly two-thirds of ordinary human conversation is, in some form, social monitoring, checking on the tribe. And tribes that failed to track shifting alliances didn't survive conflicts or famines nearly as well as tribes that did. So you inherited two overlapping instincts, one that compulsively scans the physical environment for resources and threats, tuned to fire hardest under uncertainty, another that compulsively scans the social environment for status and belonging, because your ancestors' survival quite literally depended on knowing where they stood in the group. For most of human history, satisfying both instincts required walking outside, looking at the horizon, talking to actual people around a fire. Then, within the span of about 15 years, both instincts got moved indoors, into a rectangle of glass, and given an infinite, always refreshing supply of stimulus. Every unlock is a scan of the environment. Every scroll is a scan of the tribe. And because the results are unpredictable, exactly one email in 10 worth opening, exactly one message in 20 carrying real news, your dopamine system treats every check the way Schultz's monkeys treated the flickering light, and every scroll the way Skinner's pigeons treated the unpredictable lever. This is why deleting the apps rarely works on its own, and why willpower alone tends to fail. You're not fighting a bad habit. You're fighting two systems that kept your ancestors alive for 200,000 years, both of them now aimed at a device engineered, whether intentionally or not, to trigger them constantly. Psychologist Natasha Dow-Schul spent years studying slot machine design and found that the most effective machines weren't the ones offering the biggest jackpots. They were the ones that kept players in what she called the zone, a steady, low-level state of anticipation with just enough small, unpredictable wins to keep the hand moving. Sound like anything you own? Here's the twist worth sitting with. None of this means you're broken, or weak, or uniquely undisciplined. It means your brain is functioning exactly the way it was built to function, in an environment it was never built for. A hunter-gatherer checking the horizon every few minutes was being smart. The exact same behavior, redirected at a phone that never runs out of horizon to check, becomes something closer to a trap with no bottom. And think about the last time you told yourself you'd check your phone once, quickly, and then put it down. And think about how rarely that's actually what happened. That's not a failure of character. That's dopamine reacting to uncertainty exactly the way Schultz's monkey's brains reacted to the flickering light. That's a foraging instinct scanning for resources in the one environment humans were never designed to stop scanning. So the next time your hand drifts toward the screen before your mind is even caught up, you can notice it without judging it so harshly. You're not weak-willed. You're not addicted in the way a slogan on a poster might suggest. You are, in that moment, a very old kind of animal, doing a very old kind of behavior in a very new kind of forest. Your hand isn't reaching for a phone. It's reaching for the horizon your ancestors never stopped scanning, and it always will be, until the day you finally understand what it's actually looking for.